With Absolute Batman being absolutely amazing, I had currently just been going through a list of different heroes between Marvel and DC that I honestly just felt could get this treatment. And yes, while obviously we have the entirety of the Ultimate series on Marvel's side, I was just specifically talking about trying to give it more of that absolute Batman kind of feeling and doing a situation in that specific light that is not the exact same thing as the way that the Ultimates are doing it, just kind of giving it my own spin on it. Hence why I'm making this video. Out of all of the other villains and heroes that I could think about, one of my most favorites that I honestly wanted to talk about would be my own singular pitch for an absolute Spider-Man. And while I know, yes, this is never going to happen in any specific universe, I still just wanted to kind of get my idea out there and see what you guys thought about it. So obviously, as I've already said, we have the Ultimate series and entire that thing going on out there, and Ultimate Spider-Man is absolutely amazing, and it's probably one of my favorite runs. I just kind of wanted to give you what my idea for a world a little different would be, and just see what you guys had to say about that. So obviously, if you know anything about Absolute Batman, what they basically did was just kind of take something important out of the character and see and give him kind of a different environment to be kind of raised. In Absolute Batman, they basically just take the billionaire out of Bruce Wayne and also take away both of his parents dying, kind of changing up the circumstances of his raising and just giving us an entirely new kind of Bruce Wayne, one that's raised with actual friends and kind of living a different life for his entirety of his childhood and upbringing, being raised with all of his basic rogues gallery that he would have in his normal, just day-to-day life as regular Batman that we all know just from the Prime universe. For this kind of pitch for a Spider-Man, the way that I'm going to actually have this kind of idea be pitched out would be a very different Spider-Man. The things that I would kind of like to change and take away would be, instead of him being raised by Uncle Ben and Aunt May, we take them completely out of the situation and we take them completely out of the scenario. We have it instead this time be around where at young age, instead of Peter's parents dying, instead it is Aunt May and Uncle Ben that die. Obviously, Peter is still relatively young at this age, but this time around, it's not his parents that just kind of go MIA and die, and he's being raised by Uncle Ben and Aunt May. This time, he's being raised by his parents. And we're going with the kind of comic logic of his parents still being spies. His parents still kind of being always out and doing something else, leaving him basically on his own for a majority of his childhood, for this, besides the few times that they actually decide to show up. Peter is raised very, very differently. This time around, without Uncle Ben there, he doesn't have somebody able to kind of just teach him and tell him that with great power comes great responsibility. It is a very big situation where he actually has to learn this himself. From age like 5, 10, whenever his parents kind of like whenever his aunt and uncle kind of die and his parents are just kind of the main ones raising him, it is a large situation where Peter is basically on his own. His parents just basically giving him an allowance and kind of just going on with the assumption that this kid is fairly smart and he's like, he's smart enough for his age, so he'll be fine. He's responsible enough. And that's the word that they kind of just keep on repeating. Responsible. Peter's just basically sprung into this kind of life of, well, he's old enough, he's responsible enough, he can take care of his own and he can just be fine. The neighbors can watch over him or whatever. So Peter's just basically living like this for the next large portion of his life. Peter is taking care of himself, making sure to keep everything ready, and his parents are just basically making sure to cover his housing expenses so nothing's going on. They're just making sure to pay off every specific thing like that, and with all that being paid, no one's actually coming to bother Peter, and Peter's just kind of living life at this point. Obviously, with that, they kind of just make sure to give him the basic best of everything. And Peter having all this more responsibility doesn't is like obviously yes still a nerd and still like extremely smart because that's just kind of Peter intensively being, but him having to like deal with all of this kind of more responsibility has to kind of figure out ways to be kind of protecting himself. He doesn't have many people to like actual like adult figures to kind of look out for himself, so he has to look out for himself by his own self without anyone actually like being able to like kind of watch over him as being a protective figure. So what most likely he would do, make sure to like enroll in a gym membership, kind of probably start working out from a decently like regular normal age, and also probably take some most likely some like Muay Thai classes just to kind of learn to protect himself. Also he makes sure to honestly just take care of his body, and I honestly see a very big situation of his parents obviously being spies and still doing obviously a lot of missions. They make sure to kind of just give Peter the exact best in everything. I see him most likely just going to a private school and meeting Harry Osborn this way. He doesn't go to Midtown High and he doesn't go to like a situation like that. He meets Harry Osborn at a private school and they still end up becoming friends. They still end up being fairly close, and the main difference is now that Peter is basically just a popular loner. He is best friends with Harry Osborn, which is one of the most popular kids still out here, due to the fact that Harry is probably the only other person that actively understands what Peter goes through. Harry's father is Norman Osborn, somebody who doesn't, like, while obviously kind of can show that he loves his son, is still an extremely busy figure in life that doesn't always have time for Harry. So there's a very big situation where they both kind of understand that their parents kind of both are usually MIA doing and dealing with a lot larger than life stuff. And Peter doesn't obviously know what his parents do for a living, but he understands that they kind of just are off doing what they want to do, and they just left him to do and be on his own devices for like the last couple and several years. Peter would be absolutely bulky this time around, spending a good portion of his time in the gym and getting to the point where his muscles, well before even getting this spider bite, would quite literally be well more than what it was in canon. He is absolutely massive to say the least. This is a completely kind of different Peter Parker than we normally would expect. He would most likely still get the spider bite the exact same way, ending up going on a field trip and having the same situation where they're at this kind of like science event, and a loose spider still ends up coming down, because that's usually just like a nice way to kind of like just set all of that up. But the biggest difference would be in Peter actually being Spider-Man and the way that he actually would work. This isn't a Peter that is raised off of like the same kind of niceness and nice parental figures like Uncle Ben or whatever. This Peter is a lot more calm, cool, collected, knows how to fight, knows actually how to protect himself, and is a lot more physically imposing than our normal base Peter Parker. This is a Peter that is almost 10 times to 100 times scarier off first glance when you look at him. His suit, once he actually like gets an actual normal spider suit, is a lot just obviously closer fitting on him anyways, and him just having like so much more muscle, like his height has kind of increased due to the fact of, well, he eats fairly well, and two, he works out so much that he just kind of looks a little differently. I mean, this is a guy that's probably like, let's just say like 6 foot, probably like a good decent, like most likely a good like 220, 230. His muscles are absolutely bulging. I mean, he is just this basically raw muscle kind of person that is very well trained and well honed in his fighting styles. Once we actually like get him into being Spider-Man for a decent bit, his method as Spider-Man is a lot different. Yes, he has like agility due to the fact of him being like having the still spider abilities, but now when it comes to his strength, when it comes to his like actual way that he becomes a Spider-Man, it's a lot different. His strength is probably going to be a little raised due to the fact that he just has he had a higher starting point than compared to like anybody else. But the biggest difference would be the brutality that he shows as Spider-Man. This time around, he is trained in MMA. He is trained in like Muay Thai. He actually knows how to fight, and he doesn't actually just take that lightly. This is a Peter Parker that actually is a lot more brutal, like with his fighting styles, and he doesn't like just crack quips the same way that he does. This is a more serious, toned down Peter that is basically more akin to just like the Batman. And that's actually obviously just hilarious saying this because we're basing this kind of off a similarity between like absolute Batman, but this is a very much more darker Peter. He's more just kind of zoned in everything. He has had to spend years learning that with great power comes great responsibility, and he has basically just been responsible for himself for his entire life, and he's just not taking any active shit when it comes to kind of dealing with these villains. His press, like his entire media presence, is a lot more different. With Joe like JJJ just basically kind of being more on the hard line of him being a menace. This is a person like Spider-Man this time around is a person that's not really like just like, boom, 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 like leave them hanging off webs for a little while. This is a guy that's actually like hurting people and actually dealing with a lot more damage than he normally would. When he has to deal with people like any of his villains that he probably would have, it's a lot more darker, deeper, and dealing with a lot more like actual physical brute pain. When he has to deal with people like Norman Osborn and him eventually becoming a goblin, his entire methodology isn't the exact same way. He has basically been raised to kind of just do exactly what it takes to survive. He wasn't raised just by like actually having people that tell him to like, make sure to protect people. He wants to protect people because he didn't have anybody to protect himself. So that's the main reason why he actually like loves being a hero, but he takes it a little more far than he normally would have. He takes it to the point of him actually just protecting people by any means necessary besides killing. He fully goes into that full-on method, and he gives such a more darker and actually a full leading presence in the entirety of the city. When it comes to people that I honestly see him being a lot closer friends with, it would be people like Daredevil, people like Frank Castle's The Punisher, people like that who are already that dark and that deeply like made. It's just so much of a situation where I see him getting even more along with people like that because they actually understand the brutality that he is leaving, and they would probably be closer to the same around level of him. Spider-Man usually holds back by quite a bit. And yes, he's still going to be holding back because his strength is absolutely ludicrously insane. But it's now more of a situation where he's just doing this with more precision, and him having any kind of fighting experience, first of all, changes the amount of actual time that he actually has to waste on dealing with these villains. He understands their movements. He actually understands how to deal with all of this, and he is so much faster in so many different ways that it is absolutely amazingly different. This is a basic way of just kind of putting Spider-Man in a very much darker and deeper setting just by obviously changing one singular effect. Because Uncle Ben was that presence that kind of started off Peter on that straight and narrow and left him such a good person. Without that and kind of taking away the actual full-on calm family manner that he was raised in and taking away that kind of despair that he already had that just drew him into being Spider-Man originally after losing Uncle Ben. This is a very big situation of him never having anybody to kind of actually like keep him on the straight and narrow. And yes, while he still becomes a hero because that's just something that he was destined to do at any given point in time, he is a far different hero than anyone could have ever thought about. So that is my pitch. A darker, more kind of tormented Peter Parker that has had to live a different and dark and like just a very much different life than anybody could have ever wanted to, and leading us into kind of this. So please tell me what you guys think. Obviously, as I said, this could never possibly happen in any kind of real world. And this is basically just more like a what if we could possibly get this in an alternate universe. But just let me know down in the comments. If you guys did enjoy this video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you guys can get caught up with all of the videos. I hope you guys did like this, and if you guys want me to do some more detailed videos where I actually talk about everything fully in detail and how I would want to kind of pitch out an entire series like this, I'm probably going to do a Shazam video next. And if you guys want me to make like that video a lot more detailed, drawn out, and actually like with an entire pitch on how I would want to do it, since that is actually more plausible to happen, please let me know down in the comment section below. But I will see you guys in the next video. With all that said and done, peace.